Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for today's video. So today we are going to be creating a orchard slash kind of farm space up in Sunlit Plateau. I've been waiting to do this for ages. I've basically had all of my fruit trees and bushes up here for such a long time, but obviously never actually built a proper space for them, just because I hadn't got around to it. So today we are going to be using the Owl's Toy Barn house as well as the Bell farmhouse, and obviously all of these trees and stuff that we get in our base game valley to create an orchard. Now, something I will say is this video was recorded before we got the hops farm stand that we got in the new update, so just so you know, that won't be in this build, but I will show you like a screenshot of the end of where I end up putting it. But for now, let's get started. So as you can see, I've started up here on this like first left hand side of Sunlit Plateau when you first come up from the plaza, and I kind of mapped in my pathway, which is the leafy bordered pathway, to start the setup of the orchard. Now, as you can see, and if you know, if you play the game, we don't have an equal amount of fruit trees and bushes, which absolutely drives me mad. I don't understand why they're not the same amount of everything, but obviously that means that with the orchard I can't make everything to be completely symmetrical and even and equal. So what I did at first is got all the ones that we had 6 of, and then started placing them on the left hand side just so I had them all together in one space. And then for the ones that we have less of, you'll see on the right hand side I just slightly tweak the way that the bushes and trees are placed in order to make up for the fact that we don't have an equal amount. It doesn't really bother me too much. I know for some people it really bothers them, but I feel like I just kind of tweaked how they looked in order to make it as symmetrical as I possibly could. So that is what I'm mapping in first, just so I knew how much space I needed for all the trees and bushes that we have in the base game. So once I had put in all of the trees and bushes that we had 6 and 5 of, as you can see, I then started figuring out where I was going to put Owl's Toy Barn at the end of the pathway. I wanted it so that you could see it directly from the orchard, and then I actually added it in at the bush and trees that we have only 3 of, which is the coffee bean bushes and the palm trees. I don't understand why we only have 3 of these. It does drive me mad, but because there was 3 of each, it meant I could create a symmetrical pattern with these on either side of the toy barn, and obviously just incorporate those without messing up kind of the structure and the scale of the actual orchard itself. And once I had done that, I obviously started tweaking and changing the pathway to make sure that everything was accessible, because obviously this area isn't just for decoration, it will be used for me to run around and grab the fruits and stuff that I need, especially the star pass and things like that. So I wanted it to be as functional as possible. I didn't want it to be kind of one of those spaces that you just couldn't really run around and grab what you needed. So I obviously tweaked and changed that, and then I went in with some trellis and added a border into the orchard to give it this nice structure. Now after I'd mapped that in, I started putting in the main pathway for the entrance to Sunlit. Obviously, as you can see, I've already done Wally's area, which is just kind of like a little rustic farm area that I created for him in a members only video a few months ago, I think now, maybe a month or so ago. So this area is already set up, but obviously the rest of my Sunlit Plateau isn't. So I wanted to kind of start mapping in where I wanted the sunbrick pathway to go, as well as also get Belle's farmhouse in a spot that I was happy with. I obviously didn't want to take up too much space because I do plan to include quite a lot up here in this space in the Sunlit, because I feel like there's a lot of buildings that really work well in Sunlit and it's just not big enough for everything I want to include. So I obviously wanted to tuck the farmhouse right in next to the orchard, make it quite a quaint space, and also know that I needed to fit that pathway in. So I decided to map that in and also start getting the trees placed around the back of the orchard and the back of the farmhouse. I used a lot of the Sunlit Plateau trees as well as some others in different colours, like some of the red maples were quite nice to add to that red theme with the barn, but mainly just stuck to the Sunlit Plateau trees just because I love how they look up here and they obviously fit the biome perfectly. Now at this point, as you can see, I had a lot of furniture that I wanted to use. We have quite a lot of like kind of this autumnal rustic farm furniture that I wanted to try and incorporate, which was a little bit overwhelming because I was like, there's definitely too much stuff here to include in this small space that I'd already done. But I went in and added some lighting into the orchard, as well as adding in some of the pieces I knew I wanted to include around the entrance. And then obviously I start playing around with the furniture that I do have and started mapping in where I wanted it to go, and also making sure the pathways and everything like that were wide enough and that there wasn't too many blockages. Like this van that we got from the Lilo and Stitch bundle was already in this spot, and I wanted to kind of keep it here because I really liked it outside Wally's area and outside the orchard. So I do move some things around and then obviously continue to map in the pathway, which gave me a really good idea of how much space I was going to need to create a little market stall area that I make in a minute, as well as obviously lead up to the Belle farmhouse as well, so it was all accessible. Now you can see at this point, as I said, I started creating like a little market stall area. I didn't want this area to be too big, just because I knew I was going to be including market stalls in other biomes, but I did want to have something small out here to obviously fit with the farm feel, and make use of the little fruit and vegetables that we get from the Lilo and Stitch collection. So I just love how these look next to a little farm section. And obviously mapped in the pathway to lead all the way to the bridge so that I knew where my path was going to go when I kind of continue this area and expand it out into different themes. once I'd done the store area, as you can see, I've started mapping in the foliage around the farmhouse and like the pathway leading up to that, and then obviously go in and add in some trees as well. Again, wanted to stick with a lot of the Sunlit Plateau trees, but also some other ones in some similar kind of like orange and yellow colours. So the ones from Storybook Vale worked pretty well to obviously incorporate with this house, because this house does have those kind of autumnal colours and a orange tree like already attached to it anyway. So I kind of wanted to keep in with that theme, and then went for some simple foliage all around that area to make sure it kind of looks slightly overgrown, and used a lot of like the sunlit grass to make it look overgrown, just because I felt like it looked more farmy that way. And then I also added in a couple of the little beehives that we got from the premium shop in a couple of updates ago, because I wanted it to look like the people who obviously live in this farmhouse have bees and things like that. I hope we get more stuff like this in the future where it comes to like farming stuff. I'd love to see different farming items that kind of look like where people may have like animals and things like that. That would definitely be a dream, because I feel like that would look so cute. But I did add in a couple of beehives, and then obviously started looking at the furniture I had left, mapping in where I wanted most of that to go, because there was still a lot of it left. I don't obviously end up using all of this furniture, but there was a significant amount that I felt like definitely still fit in with the theme of what we were going for. Now to finish up the build, I added in some simple lights to the pathway just to make sure everything was lit, and also added in the last few furniture pieces and foliage just around the edge of the pathway, just so it looked complete. Obviously there is some gaps at the side where different decorations are going to go. I've already kind of planned what's going to go in these two different spots, so I obviously wanted to leave them empty to obviously have something that is non-farm related go here at some point. So that is why there are two kind of blank sections next to the pathway, just because I already had a plan of what I wanted to go there. For final touches, I added just some rocks to the pathway just to make it look a little bit more natural. I used the Sunlit Plateau rocks because they blend in really well with this sunlit pathing underneath, and then obviously added in the final few foliage pieces just to kind of fill in those gaps that I had on the edge of the path. Obviously, if you're on a lower item limit, you don't need to do this at all. This is just what I tend to do to give it that nice bordered look. So here's the final build. As you can see, we're coming in from the plaza, and straight away we've obviously got the lanterns to welcome us in, and then a instant farmy feel. We've obviously got the side that goes to Wally's area, but if we go to the left, we have got the trellised off area where we have got our orchard. I did this staggered wooden pathway all the way down because I just felt it looked really natural, and I love using this path. And then on either side we have got the different bushes and trees with all the different fruits on. Even though they're not symmetrical, I feel like I did quite a good job of blending it in. And then obviously we've got the other smaller bushes and trees at the back. Obviously these are quite hard to access, but I don't use them very often, so it didn't bother me too much. And then as we come out onto the pebbled path, we've obviously got the Bell farmhouse next to the barn. I felt like this just seemed like maybe people who worked on the farm lived here, so I wanted to include that. We've obviously got the little beehives where they obviously take care of the bees, and a little outhouse and things like that. I wanted it to feel very, very rustic and lived in, and then obviously added in a lot of foliage to really make it look overgrown. I just felt felt like it kind of fit with the farm theme I was going for. Heading out there, we've obviously got our little market store area where we've got some of the craftable stores as well as the Lilo and Stitch ones. It's very small and very, very simple, but I didn't want to include too much here because I didn't want to make this giant market. I wanted it to feel more of like a kind of small town little market where people would pass by and grab things. And then obviously we have got the Lilo and Stitch truck as well, selling some goods on the final corner. So here are some shots of the final kind of orchard farm area. As I said, it is more of an orchard because I obviously didn't include any of the actual like farmable crops. If you wanted to make this area bigger, you could definitely expand it and make like an actual farm of the crops that you can buy from Goofy's stall, because there are so many of them in like all 3 maps that you could use. So if that is something that you wanted to add to your actual valley, I would say this is probably could be expanded and add that. I just personally didn't want to because I've got so much, as I said at the start, that I want to put into Sunlit and so many different buildings, so I knew I wouldn't have space. So I decided to obviously include Wally and his little farm as well on the other side to kind of give it that feel. Obviously here is a screenshot of where I've ended up putting the Hops family like stall. Obviously when I did this build originally, that wasn't out yet, so I wanted to include that and obviously did it off camera, but there is a screenshot just so you can see where I put it in case you were curious. And obviously now you can see that this whole area of Sunlit is completely finished. This whole side is done because there are 2 other different areas up here as well. But I hope you guys did enjoy and it gave you some inspiration of how I kind of set up all the different bushes and trees in the valley. You could obviously do this as well in the Vale and in Eternity Isle because there are those crops there as well. But I feel that I'll probably do those in a different theme. So if you do want to see that, let me know. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you like and subscribe if you did. It helps me out a lot, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!